How do we, say, as faculty, as professors, prepare our students for it?
AI by itself, because it is run on various algorithms, and it is a self-learning algorithm also, but then still it is limited by the by emotions, right? Because empathy and emotion is not something that the other factor being about creativity.
People start thinking, okay, what is the use of getting to a university? Uh, anyway, there's going to be an AI who will do the job for us. I can easily learn from it, right? Today, the topic that we have essentially discussed, I mean, that we've decided that we're talking about is how can university students deal or prepare themselves with this new upcoming AI-led disruptive world, right? And it's not really only about university students. I guess it's all true about all professionals as well. How do we, and that includes us as well, how do professionals prepare themselves for the disruptive, this AI-led disruptive world? I was, just some time back, in fact, today itself, I was listening to a report by CNBC on what are those workers who had been laid off a year back, right? In that mass tech layoff that went on, what are the employees doing right now? Okay, so it was a pretty well crafted story, but they shared some statistics. Okay, and I thought maybe I'll just share the statistics with you and our listeners, and this will set the context. So in the tech layoffs of 2022-23, as per a report that they've compiled, 28% was of the layoffs was done from HR and talent sourcing, right? HR roles. Software engineering had 22% layoffs, like out of all the layoffs. Marketing had 7%, and all the other kind of roles together at 43%, right? Uh, if you look at the age in which the layoffs were done, between 30 to 40 years old, 48% of the layoffs were for the people who are between age of 30 to 40. Uh, and average work experience of the people who were laid off at 12 years, right? So that was the kind of statistics. Now, the thing is, what are they doing right now? So the story was about what are they doing right now? Many of them are still struggling to find a job, right? Many of them are still struggling to find a job. Some of them have gone on to find their own or set up their own AI-led generative AI-led startups. Okay, and many of the roles for which they were fired from are never going to be fulfilled again because you have a machine that's already taking this over. Okay, so now obviously every few years in a decade, whenever there's a churn, technology churn, economic churn, a lot of lot of jobs actually get lost out, right? I mean, in 2001, the number of tech people that there were tech workers by the year 2009 when the economic recession happened, right? So 2001 was the dot-com burst and 2008-9 was the economic burst, right? Between this, there are a lot less workers in 2008, 2009 in the job market in IT, mostly in IT, right? So that means in IT and technology, you'll find people actually moving, the number of people actually moving, becoming less. That was the more of the technology revolution. But today it's different because today we are talking of AI, and it's not just limited to technology. It's limited to literally every field out there. It has the potential, and it already is disrupting. I was yesterday watching another podcast where they were showing, not really a podcast, but actually the creator was showing. So you have music, right, sung by different singers, right? So you have a song which was actually sung by, say, Arijit Singh. Now you have a software, the same song, you can make it sung by Sonu Nigam in the voice of Sonu Nigam, right? It does not take even a minute for the this one to do. All you have to do is you have to feed data, so all the songs of Sonu Nigam for the machine to get all the intonations of Sonu Nigam and do it, right? The same thing can be done vice versa of any other artist. So you had a recent song showing how Kishore Kumar had sung it, and it exactly sounded like Kishore Kumar, right? So now essentially what will happen is you have a song. Now it can be sung by any singer without the singer actually singing it. Now obviously this raises a lot of questions on copyrights and all of those things, and music labels obviously have to come around a way. I mean, they'll have to find a way out. But the point is, this is going to be disruptive for the music industry. disruptive, right? Now, this is not just limited to one particular industry, it's going to happen in every possible industry out there. Now, the question is, how do professionals prepare for it? How do we, say, as faculty, as professors, prepare our students for it? Uh, because any skill that we're trying to teach them or we ourselves learn, there's high chance that an AI machine will take that over. Right. So this is the context that in which we're trying to we'll try to explore how we can prepare ourselves. Right. What is it? What is the future that we're staring at? Okay. And in that also maybe we'll talk about regulations, government regulation. When is the time for the governments to to step in? Because I truly believe that there has to be a time when governments around the world has to step in with regulations. Otherwise, this is going to be very chaotic. Because technology left to itself will not stop itself till as a society, as collectively, we demand it to be stopped. Right. Otherwise, it's going to be chaos. Right. So I would like to have your preliminary thoughts. How do you see this future unfolding? That's number one. And in this unfolding future, how do you see the future of work, the future of workforce, future of work, and how can you prepare? So your preliminary thoughts on this.
Great. So first off, I'd like to also put that disclaimer that our concern is not about the what the end of humanity or end of civilization as we know it, which everybody fears of AI, right? It is not that what existential crisis that we are talking about. It is not going to be. We don't see, while there is one can say there is some probability of that happening possible at some future date, but then it is that is none of our concern. We are not bothering ourselves with that as a limitation. What we are more concerned is the actual way it would affect day-to-day life, right? Which is our jobs, our interactions with people, our maybe our appreciation of art and music, right? So therefore, in that light, the way I see it, and which is the commonly held notion, is that AI by itself, because it is run on various algorithms and it is a self-learning algorithm also, but then still it is limited by the by emotions, right? Because empathy and emotion is not something that an AI um, can show in an original way, right? It can only mimic empathy and emotion as far as any of the applications we've seen till date are concerned. The other factor being about creativity, right? While the example that you gave of maybe an Arjit Singh, right? Yeah, Arjit Singh's song being sung in Sonu Nigam's voice or Kishore Kumar's voice, it still has to be a song which was created by someone, right? You can put in an AI effect to it of getting in someone's voice, which is very difficult to differentiate that whether it is actually Sonu Nigam's singing that or it has been generated by a machine. So as far as creativity and empathy are concerned, those are two soft areas, right? And soft aspects, which would be hard for a hard AI to imitate, right? And therefore, I think that is one of the biggest, I mean, those two are one of the biggest, are two of the biggest actually, um, fail safes that we have, right? For AI to dominate anything, right? As soon as you interact with a chatbot, right? Most of us realize that it is a chatbot and it is not a human, just based on the replies that we're getting, right? As soon as we interact with any form of AI, we are able to quickly differentiate because we as humans are sensitive to that. Yes, it is getting more and more difficult, and the way things are progressing, that seamlessness is going to disappear in a few months or maybe a few days, right? But that sorry, not the seamlessness, the that boundary, right, or that perception or that little roadblock that exists for AI might get cleared in a few days, weeks, months, whatever. But we would still, as humans, be able to identify that as long as humans are the customers, right? Or humans are at one end. If it is AI talking to AI, it just doesn't matter. But then when it is an interface where AI is on one side and there is a human on the other side, it is going to be more and more difficult for an AI to overcome that barrier and almost seem human-like, right? While Turing test can say that the AI can respond like a human, right? But still, that emotion would still be very difficult for an AI to implement. So on that, I'd say, I mean, those are my two defenses um, from a human perspective, right? Um, One question that I have for you is what sort of industries, right? We've already seen software as one of the big areas which gets affected by this. What sort of industries do you see facing a challenge like this? And therefore, that it then the conversation then becomes relevant more for people from that industry and also maybe people aspiring for that industry.
Right. Right. So, yeah. So before I come to the specific industries, I would like to reiterate on what you said just now. See, till the point when the end customer, and that's what I believe, till the point where the end customer is a human being, right? You will have to have people. I mean, I guess in a way, uh, we are shielded. And what do I mean by this? So, see, if the end customer is a human being, to buy my product or buy my offering, the person has to have money, right? And if the person has to have money, it essentially means the person has to have some sort of job, right? And I need the masses to have to be my customers, right? I need a substantial target population who can buy my. It cannot be just few people, right? So if I need my people, my customers to buy from me, I also have to ensure, I also have to at least wish and hope that they have jobs, they have earnings that coming up, right? Now, if as a company I start replacing all my human employees with machines and expect that no one else would do it and my customers would be able to buy from me, it will be somewhere living in a fool's paradise, right? So I don't know when government regulations are going to come, but I also believe that as corporations, maybe not right now because we are in the rudimentary phase, going ahead, there is going to be more, I guess, collective understanding as part of the organizations when their businesses are going to be affected, start getting affected. Right now, people are into decreasing cost, right? Profitability, right? But when gradually, if unemployment really moves up, and I see this happening actually in the initial, I mean, in the next few years, unemployment will go up because of AI, and we'll talk of the industries as well. Businesses will be hit in terms of the revenues as well. And once they start understanding that it is happening because of our own doing, that we are replacing our employees and our competitors are replacing their employees, our peers are replacing their employees with all machines and AI, and as a result, our customer base is shrinking, there will be a collective understanding that we have to do much better than this. Right? There has to be a line drawn. That's the first thing I would say. Now, in that light, you talked of empathy and among the machines. Right now, the AI that are being developed can also mimic empathy. You know what? Even the Kishore Kumar song that I said. So every artist has a style, okay? And for every song, there has to be some emotions that you put in, okay, based on the song and the situation. The machine was able to also put those style and those emotions. Okay, so I mean, gradually we are getting there. I mean, not to the extreme yet, but if these are starting days, I think there also will be days where it can, right? But the self-regulation will kick in at some point in time. Okay, regarding the industries, I talked of music industry. I see a lot more happening in manufacturing, for example. You'll have a lot, many work, and not just routine work. Even the more sophisticated work also can be theoretically replaced by AI, right? Some of them will be for sure, but to what extent, again, the same thing about self-regulation comes in. Uh, IT software, we already understand this, right? FMCG, yes. Now, FMCG is something, again, is going to be slightly different, I believe, because especially FMCG marketing companies, right, who actually market and may not manufacture by themselves, their end customers are the shopkeepers who are individual owners who deal with their customers, right? And with those individual owners, I guess you still need human beings to go to the hinterlands, and you can speak better about this, you have experience on this, could really go and talk to them, solve their problems. So I guess you'll still have field people, especially on sales and marketing, people doing that, right? In the supporting roles, perhaps many of the jobs might be cut, right? But the front primary function, if you call it marketing and sales, I guess you'll have more people actually coming in, and there's a good chance. So I think going ahead, sales, field work, field sales, I think as a career option is going to be more lucrative going ahead, where you need really human touch, right? This I see as one of the areas where I think uh, professionals or university students should really consider, because till this point, sales was looked down upon, right? Or I mean, even if you get into sales, the idea was always that we'll have to move from this gradually, right? So I think this is one area where things would
In
perhaps change.
fact, I
Yeah.
was just thinking, um, it is safer for us from an Indian context or from a developing world context, right? Where we have a lot of mom and pop stores and where all that interaction happens, right? But
Yes.
consider the Western world with their organized retail and their organized manufacturing and the all that seamless connectivity between large format retailers and big manufacturing companies.
Mm,
There, yes, definitely a lot of that, a lot of the work of that individual salesperson and that the B2B salesperson, liaising between the manufacturer and the retail store, those sort of jobs would definitely be under risk, right? Because
mm,
that can easily be automated, right? And
mm,
that can easily have a machine take that place. But it is
mm,
the actual human interface roles which we see more in our context, which are safeguarded, right? So somewhere there is still that case that maybe the surviving mom and pop stores are going to hold some future potential for our marketers and salespeople, right? So just my point on your.
No, no, absolutely. I mean, yeah. So I was talking from a FMCG perspective, because they go to the mom and pop stores. If you talk of retail, pure retail, yes, there I think the risk of the store, uh, I mean, store employees who are on the store, right? Their jobs might be at risk, because increasingly consumers, I mean, increasingly there is going to be a time where you don't really need someone to help you with it, because the way things are positioned and everything, organized retail, right? That's something. But again, the point is, when you need roles, human interface facing roles, where you need to really converse with people and also convince and persuade and influence them, those kind of roles, I guess, even if there's an AI which is able to do it, I doubt on the other side whether human beings will be receptive or not. For example, in case of sales, right? For that matter, even in education, right? You have people, yes, education will also be disrupted in many ways, right? And you'll have inside the classroom, a lot of things also changing. But I guess in education, when you're imparting knowledge, right, there's a sense of convincing, there's an aspect of convincing, there's an aspect of what problem solving, there's an aspect of a human touch, a human communication, right? Even if an AI can do it, what is the extent to which the person on the other side is willing to take it? Like, that has to be seen, right? So because you see, if it happens that today people start thinking, okay, what is the use of getting to a university? Anyway, there's going to be an AI who will do the job for us. I can easily learn from it, right? Now, that by default will also essentially mean, what is the job of even learning something, a skill? There's also going to be an AI who will do it, right? Then what will people do? Okay, so that self-regulation thing is going to kick in. Okay, but till the time it happens, I see almost every industry getting some of the roles getting disrupted, right? You will find now, what I believe, now the question is, how can professionals prepare? I think at this point in time, it really is difficult to envisage the kind of future you'll be getting into, say, in next 5 years. But the best perhaps that we can do is, as professionals, as university students, what can be done is explore the landscape of AI, the tools that there are, and get a hang of it. Okay, try using them in whatever way possible. So there's this course that I'm taking, and in this course, one of the components is presentations, right? As a group presentations, right? So what I've told my students is that this is a presentation component, but I don't want any of you to use PowerPoint presentation for it. Okay, presentation, but you have to use an AI tool. It can be any, I do not mind, but you have to use an AI tool, the same message, everything, but do not use PowerPoint presentations, right? So now I guess that's where, as we as faculty or teachers have to gradually let our students get into. We have to bring in generative AI like ChatGPT and all this in the class, and have to find out ways how do we make students use it and enhance their skills, rather than thinking how to stop it, right? So for example, a course on communication that I'm taking, I I would be giving students the time to think on a topic, and while they do it, they I will encourage them to use chat gpt, okay, or other tools for AI while they're shaping their ideas, right? But then when they'll be presenting it, they're on their own, and I'll be asking questions, so as to ensure that they do not just present only whatever is they have found from a chat gpt, right? There will be a lot of questions and everything which will make them think, right? So I guess these are some of the things that we need to do inside the classroom also, to ensure that university students start exploring the landscape of AI and use it to increase their productivity. What will happen as a result of this is that it may happen that whatever tools they're using might become redundant, new ones come, and all of that things. This is part of technology, but they will be in the habit of learning. They'll be in the habit of exploring. So tomorrow, if there is another tool coming, they would not be afraid. I mean, you look at a coder, someone who is good in coding on one or two languages, tomorrow if another coding language comes in which is hot cake in the market, they are much less likely to be skeptical about it. They'll think, okay, it's another language, I'll learn, not a big issue in that, right? They'll learn, they'll upskill themselves. But why? Because they've already cracked something, another coding language before. Similarly, I believe one essential way through which all professionals, all university students can prepare is by right now exploring, right? Because still now we are safe in a comparatively in a safer environment. Explore what the AI tools are, play around with them. The point is play
True.
around with them, right? Today you don't even need to code as such. You just need the basics. Today everything comes easy, all the codes are there, but you need to execute, right? And you need to give prompts. There's something called prompt engineering coming. How do you give better prompts, right? So these are the skills I think which will become increasingly important, right? Till the point where there is going to be some sort of regulation. I'm sure it will come, it will be self-regulation, it will be government regulation. But at least for now, I guess for me, the way I look at it is this is the way that you can prepare yourself, right? Play around the landscape. Yeah, over to you.
True. So, in fact, so when we talk about AI and students, right? So, our first thing is we're starting right from the classroom and saying that even the time that you spend in the classroom, right, that also is affected by AI. And as instructors, we are aware of the fact that a lot of students are aware of AI and they will use it or misuse it, right? So, for us, we if we actively promote and tell them that go ahead, use AI as a tool, right? But don't let that become your answer, right? So, which is why more and more we've got situations like what you stated, where the assessment is not going to be on just the content, because the content you could have easily gleaned through AI, but the way you present it, the way you're able to answer questions based on that content, right? So, which is why more and more institutions are sort of focusing on verbal uh, tests, right? Or are shying away from open book examinations, because open book or open laptop examinations, as they might be, can have a large scope for students misusing AI. But then if you give them time to prepare, right, and use all tools that you have at at your disposal, and then answer, right? You need to imbibe what you've learned, what AI has learned for you, right? And you need to imbibe that, and therefore use your mind to answer that question. Right? So I think right from the classroom that step starts. Right. So moving on, I had one more comment to make about an industry. Right. So our legal system currently is swamped with cases. Right. And a lot of the hearings, or a lot of the paperwork, or a lot of the time and energy in the legal system is spent on routine, mundane things, right? Uh, an entire application which would be standardized for most part, needs to be submitted, right? And then somebody needs to examine that, and then there is a hearing just for that submission to happen, right? A lot of that redundancy can be addressed through AI. But do I say that judgments should be passed by AI? Definitely not, because an AI, even if it is non-partisan in looking at the data, right? It can only be non-partisan in looking at the data that is presented to it, right? But a judge with experience, with their understanding of the law, would be able to interpret, right? Now, this interpretation is something that AI can do very well. Yes, I agree, but there we are still some way away from it. So I do sort of support our CGI in what he was saying. He's making a lot of efforts at getting technology into the courtroom, and one of those things was a possibility of using AI to look at those mundane tasks and then move them out. Does that affect law graduates? Well, yes, the number of jobs, or the number of entry level jobs, are obviously going to become a problem. But then it also frees up a lot of their time to from creating these redundant documents to actually understanding a case, right? They can spend time now to understand the case and therefore apply law in the way it should be, right? And so I'm just moving away from a pure business example, because this is something that I see around. I feel that there is scope there, and it would play a positive role, because then these young lawyers can now think of studying and understanding cases more than preparing drafts for a senior lawyer. Any other industry or
Yeah,
any
yeah,
comments that you have on this?
absolutely. I guess so. You said that moving away from business, but you know what? I believe everything is business. Wherever there's money involved and you need money to sustain yourself, there is this aspect of business. I think nothing is beyond business. Everything falls under business. So absolutely, and welcome example. And yes, this is a landscape you much better understand. Also, one more thing that I feel is that, like, the time to pass a judgment also perhaps would also go down, because right now, you, because of AI, if in if for even for lawyers, okay, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but then they need a lot of previous cases, the term for it, just to put out a case to
Yes.
show that thing. There's term forgetting that,
Citations.
but citations, right? Now, those are much easier for them to get rather than going through all the previously it was books, but the internet came, but then again on internet it was scattered. But now AI tools can give you much more easily, right? So you have a better chance of presenting your case, and also is good for the judgments, right? So as you rightly pointed out, those kind of work is going to be minimized. Now you don't need a clerk to really search through the entire day to get that one brownie citation or point. uh, AI was going to do. But then what will happen is that as you rightly pointed out, lawyers will have more time in really understanding the case, in litigation, preparing the arguments and all of that stuff, right? And they can also take help of tools to augment their skills, right? So I think the time to pass a judgment will significantly come down, and perhaps the quality of judgment also will go up because of those things, right? So that's well put. Other than this, I guess so. I mean, you talk of any industry, basically, the support functions are going to be affected for sure, right? I totally think in the initial days, the support function is totally going to be affected. You will have to have people, but again, coming back to the same thing, that how do we prepare? Because we understand every industry, the support functions any are going to be affected. But then the question is, how do we prepare? I think that was the main theme that we started with. As one, of course, I think we had discussed that you have to start using AI tools. The second thing that I also think is that, and this is also a responsibility of we faculty members inside the classroom who are driving these discussions, is that we have to increasingly find or innovate ways to make our students think. Okay. And by thinking, I do not mean just say putting out questions that they will answer, right? We also have to challenge them inside the classrooms. Okay. Yes, they can use an AI tool to find out some answers, but then there has to be more counter questions to that, okay, which the students should think, because this thinking is what ultimately is going to keep them ahead. Once you have a thinking mind and once you have a learning mindset, whatever the challenges are, you'll adapt. I guess, I mean, that is the theory of evolution, right? Which the organisms which have evolved is because they've thought through the situation and they had that ability to learn and adapt. Okay, and that these are the foundation, these are the fundamentals, and this will not change. We are going through a crisis. I mean, existential. I don't know if it's a crisis, but yeah, we are going through an existential churn. So that this two ability to think and to learn will not go away. So I think, as since the title was about university students, as faculty members, we have to consciously think that in every class that I go, how can I make my students think, and how can I ensure that I create atmosphere or environments where they will feel excited, they will feel inspired, they'll feel motivated to learn more and ask more questions. And what is the proof that my students are learning or want to learn? Is only when they ask questions, right? I guess you totally relate to this. For me, the best of times are when a class is done and you move out and you find few students coming behind you to ask few questions. That means they're in the class learning, thinking about it, right? So I think we have to enable such atmospheres more often, and also we need to talk about the future that is coming. Okay, that's very important. And also, we as professionals also, we ourselves have to dabble with those tools. It's very important, right? We need, because as in a business school, as I said, everything is business. So we need to understand how everything around, what are the tools that can really augment the capability in a certain industry of a certain role, right? Those things we ourselves have to dabble, talk to people, explore ourselves, and then get into the classrooms. Right. I guess that's, I think, some of the ways through which university students can prepare and also professionals can prepare. Yeah.
In fact, for faculty members, and which is a perspective I keep taking and I keep telling my students, as far as understanding a lot of the what, where, when, how type of questions, um, there are enough resources available and AI can play a very constructive role in that. But then when it comes to the why, right, that is where the instructor brings value into the classroom, right? Where the instructor is able to make students understand why is something done, right? Or why does a decision make sense, right? So if we are able to get our students to answer that question why, and maybe some repeated whys, right? So why would you do that? Okay, because of this. But why would you do that? Right? Why would you want to do that? Right? So if you ask nested whys, somewhere that conceptual clarity would be much deeper, which is something that you can force fit nested why question to someone. But then is the student able to understand and respond with that sort of attitude? I think that really helps. So I keep telling my students, don't come to my class for any of the what, hows, and whatever. It's the why that is important for me. That is what I want you to learn in my class, and I think that will remain a value add as far as the classroom is concerned. Because otherwise, there are enough resources right now also, right? Why do our students need to attend our classes at all? Right, there are very cheap courses available on the internet. There are enough resources available, video lectures which are there, which might actually be impeccable because they cover every point which we might miss out in the class. But then, do they answer the question why? Not as effectively, maybe as a instructor would be able to do. So, in fact, when you quoted that report, the CNBC report, was it CNBC or whatever it was, the report in the
CNBC,
beginning?
yeah.
If
The
you,
US CNBC, yeah.
yes, yes. So, those high figures, 20%, 25%, whatever, those were for programmers, for HR executives, etc. Right?
Yeah.
But the key thing was 7% were from marketing, right?
Marketing, yeah.
Now,
Yeah.
that also has an insight, right? There are certain acts or certain roles which the marketing people are doing, which have that creative aspect, which have a which still have that requirement for a human touch. A lot of
Mm.
HR functions, right? I'm not
Mm.
saying HR is redundant, right? But
No.
there are
No.
still a lot of functions, something like recruiting, right?
Mm.
An HR recruiter is
Mm.
actually a very redundant function. Why?
Mm.
Because a lot of times the HR recruiter, when they're handling volume, They're dependent on whatever filter the job portal gives them. When they're handling niche positions, then they are dependent on very short interactions, right? Maybe a half an hour interaction, maybe a 1 hour interaction, maybe multiple 1 hour interactions. But then it is all a show being put up by the candidate at that point of time, right? And
Right.
the HR manager is attempting to see through that cloud or see through that smoke screen, right?
Mm,
But and need not be effective all the time, right? So except for very key recruitment positions, a lot of these can actually and are actually being handled by job portals, right? Job portals, they apply all sorts of logic to give you an output based on certain factors, right? They understand recency, right? If someone's updated their profile recently, then they are actively looking out for a job, right? And that is a cue for a recruiter that this person is approachable. Out of 10 people I approach, five people who recently updated their profiles would I would see a better response from those five than those five who haven't recently updated their profiles. Right. So there are existing um, algorithms in job portals also which are doing this. And the application of AI in such a area is just an add-on, right? Ultimately, many of the redundant functions, right? HR has some redundant functions which will get hived off. Uh, Marketing also would have quite a few redundant functions right now, right? Maybe some companies currently have a human sitting and doing market basket analysis and suggesting a layout of products, right? But then is there a need for that, right? It is ultimately just looking at an output, and you can have an AI look at that output and decide, okay, where should placement of products, right? Bread, should it be placed with butter or should it be placed in the cereals section of a supermarket, right? Depending on the profile that you have or the profile of purchases that you're having at your store, you might actually decide that no, it should not be placed with the butter, it should actually be placed with the cereals, right?
mm,
Or vice versa, whatever. I mean, so
right.
that having a person do that currently may not make sense, right? I mean, you have people doing that right now, and I really think that that is a redundant role. Therefore, it is right now um, just removing redundancies in the system. Somewhere going forward, and even when it comes to teaching, right? If you have faculty members who are not able to incite curiosity among students, then that role is also a fairly redundant role because what are the students doing? They're not learning in the classroom, they're learning outside.
Yeah,
They look at YouTube, they look at other resources and learn that subject, right? So in fact, that faculty position is also redundant, right? So therefore, right
absolutely.
now, the way I see it is uh, every person needs to look at their role and see how am I addressing redundancy? Is my role such that I am not adding any value? If the
Right,
person is adding value, then maybe at least a couple of years, maybe 2, 3 years, the person still has that safety, right?
right.
And the person can keep building up on their profile to make sure that their roles are no longer redundant. But then if you
Abs
become complacent, then you are on the path to redundancy and you're at the mercy of an AI giving you a retirement bonus so that you live it off.
No, no, absolutely, totally correct. I mean, we have to really see how can we make our roles more dynamic. Right? Today, I mean, since you're talking of inside the classroom, I mean, yes, perhaps an AI can do, but I guess a human teacher who has an understanding of different fields. Okay, so I call it reference points to make to explain a concept in the class. Right, say business concept in the class. If I can draw from evolutionary biology, if I can draw from psychology, if I can draw from physics, if I can draw from maths or chemistry, and then I explain the point, those reference points are going to really make an evolved perspective in front of the students. It's going to present an evolved perspective, right? This is invaluable, and this is the dynamism of the job. Right? And students will always value such faculty, such teachers, because that just does not give the students a new understanding. It also ignites a lot of curiosity, right? I mean, look at even ourselves. When I hear someone giving so many reference points, I just get curious that how can this person know so much, right? It automatically ignites their curiosity and even inspires. So more than the curiosity factor, which is extremely important, you also get inspired and motivated to yourself delve into it, right? So that becomes very, very important, right? So I guess at the end, before we wind up, it's important maybe to talk of the mindset that we as professionals and also as university students should have, right? And the mindset that I would suggest that one should have is that it's not that all the jobs are going to go away, right? Even though AI has the potential to take away all the jobs, but it's not going to be a world run by, I mean, only of the robots or machines and zombies and human beings will do nothing. It's not going to happen, right? What will happen is that human beings, many of these roles that we are there will be replaced. It has happened every time. Okay, so as professionals, as individuals and students, more and more we have to understand how can we augment our skills and how can we learn the AI tools better. Because today this tool might be redundant, but then if you keep on learning, and I'm repeating the same thing, tomorrow, if it's a new tool, I'll still be able to learn, I'll still be able to adapt. Okay. And till the end, till the day the end customers are human beings, I think we'll be fine, right? Human beings will be the buyers, the consumers. So you need human beings or humans to also earn to be consumers. So I mean that the market economy in itself is going to take effect, right? But the churn is going to be there. There is no denying that. The churn is going to be there. The only way to protect ourselves from the churn is to ensure that our jobs are dynamic, to keep on upskilling, and to keep a close watch on this landscape as it evolves, right?
True.
So that's my final take. If you want to say anything last, and then we'll wind
Okay.
up.
Well, every revolution has had its share of ups and downs, right? So there have been, with the French Revolution, a lot of heads rolled. With the Industrial Revolutions, a lot of wheels rolled, right?
Right.
And we finally had a big change, right, as far as the occupational structure of people is concerned, right? With agricultural revolutions, we've had farmers or hand tillers losing their job and tractors taking on a lot of those roles. But then, did those people suddenly become redundant? They found other avenues, right? And that is again the basic quality of humans, that they adapt, right?
Hmm.
We've survived and become the alpha race just because we, as an entirety, as the human race, we are able to adapt, right? And therefore, um, our students also going forward will adapt. It is about what position do you have in that curve of adaptation. Are you going to be a laggard who's going to take up that change, or take up the challenge when you're already swamped? Or are you going to be on the forefront, trying to learn things, trying to adapt, trying to take on those new roles, so that you are ahead of that curve, right? And like, yeah, I mean, that's my concluding thought on it. It's about being active, being aware, being on that forefront so that you do not get lost, right? Um, One cannot say that everybody survives every revolution. That is not possible, but it is about being on the forefront so that you are an active change agent yourself too.
Yeah,
So
absolutely. I mean,
those are
just
my
look at how
concluding thoughts.
evolution has happened. It is always the
True.
ones who have survived are the ones who have adapted. How did they adapt? Because they understood what is happening. They were curious, they learned and adapted, right? I think the same principles
Exactly.
keep hold as well.
True.
Great. Thank you so much, George. I think we had some good points to discuss. Hopefully, I've done justice to the topic that was at hand. I mean, none of us, I mean, we must tell our listeners that none of us are actually prepared. The idea was that let us explore this as we go on in the course of the discussion, right? So a lot of the ideas that both of us have shared, it was not thought through before. It just came as we were speaking and we are listening to each other, right? So I think that's the very essence of this particular podcast, to explore on different topics and exchange ideas and views. Thank you so much, George. So we'll be back again with another topic, and we'll have our discussions on this. Right?
Thank you,
See you.
Victor. Nice as always.
Absolutely.